I have new reporting today on the terrorist attack in New Orleans on New Year's Day. I've obtained the 2019 confidential report that was done by a private security consulting firm, Interfor International, that called for the immediate installation of permanent barriers. The goal, preventing the type of truck ramming incident that killed 14 people last week. But Interfor International says political bickering and infighting compromise security and the immediate improvements it recommended. In this report, it said, quote, throughout Interfor's time with the various players in the French Quarter, we were privy to palace intrigue and accusations of agendas. And we were repeatedly reminded of each group's red lines lurking around the corner to immediately render any proposal or initiative dead in the water, no matter how insignificant in reality. Joining us now to discuss this, the CEO of Interfor International, which authored that report. Thank you for joining us. So, Don, I have obtained this confidential report. I've read through it. Look, today kicks off the Mardi Gras celebration season, and the city is asking for federal help to ensure that they can ramp up security and keep revelers safe. But the backdrop after reading this report makes you wonder about the political dysfunction. What was the level of political dysfunction your firm encountered in 2019?
Well, it's a great question. I don't think it's anything like anything we've ever seen before. I mean, there were so many disparate groups and shareholders and stakeholders that have a role in driving the French Quarter. So specifically the French Quarter, not New Orleans in general. So it was quite glaring to see how many different groups are fighting for the dollars and the policing dollars to protect this 1.1 square mile piece of land. So it was quite jarring.
So you say it was quite jarring. How unusual is it that the dysfunction rose to a level that it warranted inclusion in your firm's security report?
Well, I don't think we've ever written a report like that before, so that should stand on its own.
So just bring us into that. I mean, it was so bad that you felt the need to put it in the report and give it to, the stakeholders that commissioned your firm to do this report, right?
Correct. Well, the point of the report was really to highlight issues throughout the French Quarter, security issues, safety issues, and the idea was to lay out a series of concerns so that they can mitigate them from one by one and work their way down the list. So this was one of the many issues that we identified, and it's one of the more complicated issues to address for any municipality, but it's unlike anything we've seen in other jurisdictions.
And what was your concern, though, at the time, because you worked on this, that political bickering and the politicking and all the dysfunction would hinder the necessary security measures from being put into place?
Right. When you're fighting over dollars in the largest or the most prominent tourist attraction in the state of Louisiana, there's obviously a lot of attention to it. So our concerns were, if we were to present a series of recommendations, who would take charge? How would they implement change? Who would drive the bus, if you will?
And do you know what ended up happening after you handed over that report? What was implemented from it?
Unfortunately not. As soon as we issued the report, I pretty much believe that's the last we've heard from the French Quarter.
Is that unusual to not hear back at all after you put together a report like this?
Yeah, it's fairly unusual. Usually our clients will work with us to build a program to mitigate concerns, to break down what's necessary, triage everything, and to determine what is most important going forward. In this situation, it was just radio silence.
Huh. So the French Quarter Management District, which commissioned your firm to do this, says, quote, the strength of our ongoing partnership with the city and the NOPD allows for the results of any studies or reports completed. Now, we should note, it did not specifically say whether or not the dysfunction and the security lapses flagged in your 2019 report were addressed. But as a security expert, do you feel like the city took your findings seriously enough?
I have no way of knowing what's happened since 2020 in all reality, and in the behind the scenes of the political infighting and bickering, it's very hard for us to determine. But the proof is what we're seeing today. I mean, a tragic accident has occurred, or attack. 14 lives were lost, countless injured, and this is the type of attack that could certainly have been mitigated by implementing specific mitigation tactics like bollards and traffic control.
And on that note, I want to show this video, and for our viewers, it is hard to watch. but it shows the attacker in the white pickup truck driving around a single police cruiser and over a wedge barrier that wasn't deployed. What is your reaction to seeing that, given the security recommendations your firm made? And then, you have to ask the follow-on question, is there any way to fully prevent a terrorist from, unleashing terror if they want to do it?
Right. I'll address the first part first. Quite frankly, that's a jarring image, and it's shocking. The fact that the assailant was able to just scoot around the police vehicle and then right over a closed wedge barrier is shocking. The point of the wedge barrier, and even if they're not operable, you can manually open those in most circumstances. So it should have been open and allowing any vehicle to be stopped. The fact that it wasn't, I don't have an answer for that, and I can't address that. But it is pretty shocking. So it shouldn't have happened. I mean, quite frankly, if the concern was that a vehicle can get around it, then you use two police barriers or vehicles. And as we know now, the city of New Orleans does have archer barriers, which are the smaller barriers, which could have been put in the street to mitigate this type of attack. It should have been stopped at the corner of Canal and Bourbon.
All right, and just very quickly on a terrorist who's hell-bent on a mass shooting or vehicle ramming, is there really any way to stop that, though? I mean, even with what you lay out?
Well, terrorism is quite old in all its iterations, and it's very hard to protect unequivocally. But I would say that the ramming attacks and a lot of these issues like active shooter situations can be mitigated or at least prevented to a certain extent. And that's the goal of any security deployment.
All right, Aviv, thank you very much.